All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Heron. I really appreciate it. So I was actually sharing with people before I came in here. Funny enough, the last time I gave a talk in here was during my TED Talk. This was, as Dr. Heron mentioned, a long time ago. It's when we first met. It was about 6 or so years ago. And I remember how it happened. I was basically just looking. I was part of a student government, and they have a little app that allows you to see some events coming up related to the school. So I thought, okay, great. I'm going to look at the events, and then I'm going to select one that I want to do. I looked and it said, oh, you can give a TEDx talk. And I thought, okay, I'll give a TEDx talk. I'll do that. Now, I've heard of it before. I knew what it was, but I didn't really, I would say I gauged how serious it was, but apparently it was more serious than I thought because I get home and I'm like, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm doing a TEDx talk. And they're like, oh, yeah, sweetie, real nice, real nice. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I signed up. I have the papers here. They're like, what do you mean you have the papers? I'm like, I'm official. That's what it means. And of course, like any parent, they panic and they think, oh my gosh, my son that has never spoken in his life really is actually going to start speaking in front of people. That's a bit of a problem because he never speaks in his life. And, I already had my idea and they're like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I'm going to talk about autism. I myself was diagnosed at a young age with Asperger's syndrome, although nowadays I call it high functioning autism. And I wanted to talk about it because it's something that's really affected my life. And this TEDx talk meant a lot to me. The ability just to stand up here means a lot to me because when I was a kid, I never really spoke much to people. I was always afraid to speak to people. And I remember it was Montessori school, I believe. The teachers even called my parents and said, we've noticed something with Zach. He doesn't interact with kids. He doesn't talk to kids. He doesn't seem to show any emotions with kids. And that's something that a lot of people seem to misunderstand. There was a big talk a lot of the times of, do people with autism feel empathy? And that may sound a little harsh, but it is something that was debated, and we have to acknowledge that. And I think the best way to say it is like, yes, we do. It's just that we have different ways of showing it sometimes. And through this TEDx talk, it may not be through me actually hugging someone on the spectrum and saying like, oh, it's okay, like there are people that understand you. Me getting up here was kind of a way of showing that I cared. And at my own Montessori school, in elementary school, intermediate school, elementary school even, or even going into middle school, I still did not talk to people. I still did not really do anything social. I was always just kind of looking at the ground. I was kind of fidgeting. I remember even just, how to best say it? I mean, yeah, that's really it, just not talking. Not talking, I didn't want to talk to people, and whenever I tried to talk to people, it just didn't really come out right. I would mess up with my words, or I would maybe just not really gauge or show that I'm interested in what they're talking about. And as a result of that, what happened was that people would not really acknowledge me, and they would leave me out of things. They would think I'm weird, and eventually some kids started becoming very mean. They called me worthless. They called me a waste of space, and I started to believe that. I questioned, should I just, what's the point of me just really doing anything if I'm just going to be sidelined all the time? And eventually it really started to feed into negativity in my head every single day. Elementary school and intermediate school, I remember I would go to school, I'd be reminded of how unloved I felt, and then I'd go home and I'd cry. And that was basically my life for several years. It was the life I tried to hide from my parents because I didn't want them to know. But every day I would tell myself, okay, so here I am unlovable, and here I am, and I am going to just get through school because that's all I do is get through life and not really live it. And so that's basically my elementary and intermediate school experience. I had no friends. I had no one that I felt like I could talk to. I felt like I was just an expense to my parents' willpower to bear and tolerate me, and I figured that at the end of the day, if they could just get rid of me, they probably would. And I should have just disappeared on my own. But I didn't know how to do that. I was like 10, 11? So unfortunately, I was stuck in a really, really toxic place. And in comes middle school. Eventually, 7th grade, I learned how to run. But apparently, I sucked and I didn't do too well. 8th grade, I got better. I found out that you don't actually have to start sprinting right away and then dying like 20 seconds in. You can actually pace yourself. A metaphor I learned throughout life, actually. You have to pace yourself, because otherwise you die in the first 20 seconds, and that's no fun. So eventually I did that. My parents said they were proud of me. And I tried looking back on why I wanted to do running. And one of the main reasons was because one day I remember my parents, throughout my time in elementary and intermediate school, I wouldn't say much. I would just say, oh, well, I'm fine. My parents would be like, okay, but they picked up, they're like, something's a little off, like you don't seem fine all the time. And eventually my mother tried saying like, well, yeah, like, aren't you happy? And I just said, Mom, I'm not like other people. And I remember crying, and there were many things I could have done for their child. And what my mother decided to do was sit me down in the kitchen, and she loaded up, you probably don't even remember this. That's my mother right there, by the way. And she probably doesn't even remember this, but she brought up a computer of a bunch of people. And she's like, okay, Zach, I want you to look at these people. Okay, so we got Albert Einstein, just a lot of people I know from school, even some people that I know kids in my generation really liked. And then she said, all of these people were believed to have had Asperger's syndrome. And she showed me all these different photos of all these different people, showed me some very unique things about them. And she said, this is what you have. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not weird, I'm just autistic. And she's like, yes, but that's not a problem. If anything, with some people, it's actually a strength. It's something that may actually be beneficial to you in certain ways. And I remember she said word for word, like, these people had this and they still overcame their challenges. You can do this. And so when I got into 8th grade, I learned how to pace myself, and I ended up working my butt off, going to every single workout, running extremely hard. And let me tell you, running hurts. It does not get easier. It does not get easier at all. You just get faster somehow. Your body tolerates it more. But then you have to make the choice, so are you going to just be happy that you don't feel pain at running 6 minutes a mile, or are you going to try to go down to sub 5? And so in 8th grade, I was really good at running. I was the top guy. And then high school came, a lot of problems there. I struggled a lot. I broke my foot first half mile of a race, I broke my foot. And I finished it. I was like top 20, but I was out for the season. You take it to spring, and I had other problems, tendon issues, tendonitis specifically. Sophomore year was constant injury after injury of running. And I have like flat feet. I have bunions. I'm not ashamed to mention that. But in other words, I'm not designed for running. I'm not designed for running. And I got extremely injured constantly. And eventually I was like, okay, well, this isn't really working too well because it's just me putting myself through a bunch of pain. And while I'm doing good, I also don't want to cause irreparable damage. The only way I could run is if I did an hour of preparation time beforehand, if I did the extra work. But eventually, this was before COVID, pretty much right before COVID. And this was after the TED Talk I gave in my freshman year. Let's remember that. I met Dr. Heron, thought he was a cool dude, but wrote him off. I mean, I didn't know it. I underappreciated you. I didn't know, but the hype was real sophomore year when I really got to know him. I was asked, hey, do you want to join the SDLC? And I'm like, well, what the heck is that? And he's like, the SDLC. They're like, the SDLC, it's the Student Diversity Leadership Committee. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this will be a great chance. And it's clear that they liked my TED Talk. So this will be a great chance to talk about autism advocacy and share my story with people in hopes of inspiring them. And so I joined the group. I really get to know the people. And it's going really well, but I was very nervous. And I didn't really know why I was nervous. Here I was, like pretty much right here, that we had the red little round carpet laid out, and I was talking really, really well at the TED Talk. And then a year later, it's like I couldn't even talk at all. You couldn't even recognize me as the same kid. And so I started to wonder, like, did I just go silent? And eventually, what happened was when COVID started to shut everything down, I started to think to myself, okay, no one is going to come and help me here. I'm going to keep pondering, well, why can't I speak? Why can't I speak? Well, the problem is because you're not even speaking. You need to actually get out there and speak. And so we had an event before COVID, about a week or two before. It was a promotional event. You had all these clubs at a local school, and I thought, okay, we're sitting right here, we're at our stand for the Student Diversity Leadership Committee, and nobody's coming over yet. So I think, okay, I read a book, a marketing book, on how to get attention for businesses and for organizations. So I'm going to just leave the stand where I was told to stay, and I'm going to walk up to random strangers and say the exact same line. Keep in mind, I'm like 14, 15. I'm like, hi, do you believe in youth advocacy? and being someone that makes a difference in your community? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, come this way. And so I lead them there. And then one person goes, they promote the Student Diversity Leadership Committee, the rest of the group. And then from there, I go out again. I grab someone else. A few people, I believe it was Yamini even, one of our co-chairs at the very start, she even picked up, okay, wait, this is what he's doing. This is why he's not here. And so she starts going out, and then Snow starts going out, our other co-chair. We have a few people on standby, and then we start flipping around like, okay, some of us are going to go out. And by the end of the night, we ended up being one of, if not the club with the biggest response out of everybody. And I think it was a joint effort, obviously. We all really worked together. We all realized, okay, this is our structure now. And this really taught me, wow, like I could really go out there. I can really talk to people, even if I don't really know them. And then COVID comes and we're all locked indoors. And I think, okay, what to do, because I really like this organization, but we can't do anything. And so I think, well, what are we missing right now? We're missing that camaraderie. We're missing that feeling of not just being a group that meets to get something done. We need to be more than that. We need to be a group that trusts each other, a group that's able to rely on each other, understand each other, believe in each other, and build each other up. And so I said to Dr. Heron, and I believe it was Dr. Heron or someone else who coined the idea of a movie night, but no one wanted to do it, so I started pushing for it. I'm like, hey, okay, here are 3 movies. We're going to watch it on like Teleparty or Netflix Party, and we're going to go from there. And we did this throughout the first few months. And we really started to get to know each other because we'd be talking about the movie. We'd be talking to each other about the messages of the movie. And they were like, we had some funny movies. We had some more serious movies. We had a movie about the Holocaust. And then next movie we had Will Smith trying to support his daughter because they're broke. So a touching movie, one that wasn't too touching before, and it allowed us to have really honest conversations sometimes, but also other times just to really get along, just some time to really get to know each other. And then after the summer, things started driving up again. And I thought, okay, this is really something that I'm building. This is something that I'm building. This is something where I actually feel loved. This is something where I actually feel like there's a mission. This is something where I feel like all the time spent reading books about how to work with people, how to talk with people, how to kind of market like a company. Because I wanted to I'm still going for finance right now. I'm big on business. And I thought, okay, SDLC, this is an opportunity because it's a good opportunity with good people for a good purpose. It's a good opportunity for me, but most importantly, it's a good opportunity for others. And so we kick it off. We start doing all these different types of events. We start doing promotional advertisements throughout the school. And the reception is ginormous. It was honestly a little overwhelming. I think sometimes the worst thing that could happen to a company is sudden success. And with our club, we had that sudden success. We had sudden success syndrome, I would say, for a little bit. And we were just trying to manage it of how do we take in? We have like 50 interested people wanted to join. We still have to set up our marketing committee. We want to set up this other committee that focuses on the finance and the budget. And we had all these different ambitions. So how do you balance that? And that was the main thing we learned how to tackle. But the main reason that we were able to balance it was because we were able to talk amongst each other. We were able to support each other. We already grew attached from the movie nights, for example. And because of that, we were just able to move much more efficiently because we understood each other, we respected each other, and we were also, most importantly, we had the same mindset. And it was a little difficult for me because I also, around that time, was thinking, okay, well, our 2 co-chairs are leaving, and so we're going to need 2 new ones. And at the time, I didn't know why, but everybody wanted me to be one of the co-chairs. I seemed to be everyone's quick decision, and I didn't really, and this is something I still struggle with. I don't know if you call it imposter syndrome or what, but there are times where I still feel like I'm worthless. There are times where my childhood always just comes back to me, and I feel like this is a dream, and I'm ready to wake up and realize I'm still in 5th grade, scared, alone, and feeling useless. But everyone's support was so much, like Audie, his support was so much, he's back there. Dr. Heron's support was so much that I figured, okay, I mean, they want me, And so I can try. And it worked extremely well. We started to grow. We started to grow in other schools. We started to grow in Upper St. Clair. We started to grow in Mount Lebanon, starting all these different chapters. And the one thing that we made sure of, most importantly, was that everybody was heard. We eventually rebranded. We called ourselves Shout. And it's important to mention that we were a diversity, equity, and inclusion organization. But the one thing that we really wanted to make sure of was that it wasn't just diversity, equity, and inclusion in the ways that most people would think off the top of their head. We wanted diversity, equity, and inclusion of thought as well. We wanted diversity, equity, and inclusion of people, different backgrounds, different experiences, different ideas of how the world works. And in a world that was getting more and more political, we also wanted to make sure that no matter what, everybody was heard. Everybody felt respected. We wanted the diversity of people. We wanted the equity where everyone was able to be heard. Everybody got a chance to be heard. We wanted the inclusivity of people who may actually not really have opinions that they feel comfortable sharing much. We want to be the type of people that you can go to, that you can talk to. And we wanted to be a group that shows that you can be anywhere in this world. You could be on the spectrum. You cannot be on the spectrum. You could be left. You could be right. You could be black. You could be white. Does not matter. You're a human being at the end of the day. And that is the most important thing. You have your own thoughts. You have your own unique experiences that only you can have. And that is why we really want to hear from you. And that's why we really need to benefit, because we can learn a lot from people that we do not think like, people that we do not think we understand. Some of my best conversations are with people that don't agree with me on many different topics, because I'm able to really take myself outside of my world, try to put myself in theirs, and try to find those connections. And so that, I think, is why Shout was so powerful. That's why I think Shout was so effective, is because people saw this. And because people saw this, they were able to really get involved, no matter where they were. Democrat, Republican, again, black, white, autism, not autistic, LGBTQ, straight, heterosexual, does not matter. And I know straight and heterosexual are the same thing, just clarifying. Don't worry. But that's the point, though, is that it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, we respected you as a person. And thankfully, this organization was very successful, and it eventually allowed me to get nominated for 18 Under 18. But again, I still felt like I didn't deserve it. I still felt like I was worthless inside. I felt like I just got lucky. I think one thing that kept playing in my head was like, loser got lucky, loser got lucky, loser got lucky. That's all you are, loser got lucky. You'll slip, just you wait, you'll slip. Oh yeah, you're building yourself up just so life can just tear you down. Because it's more satisfying to tear you down after years of hard work instead of just clipping you when you're just growing. We need to let you grow first so you fall and you make a louder thud. So that insecurity was still in my head. I remember going to the 18 Under 18 photo shoot, and I felt completely alone. Everyone was so welcoming and nice, but I felt like I just didn't deserve it. I was like, okay, this is some kind of joke. Like someone just must have lobbied really hard for me, and I should not really be here. And this thought continued in my head for a long, long time, and I enjoyed the photo shoot. I loved the people. I loved the opportunities. I loved being on a billboard on the highway. That was pretty fun. But I still, again, didn't really think I deserved it. And it's important to mention, like, well, Zach, you're doing all these things. How can you not feel that way? But when you live your whole life thinking that you are worthless, you're going to always go back to the idea that you're worthless. And in some ways, it was easier for me to think I was worthless, because if I admitted that I actually had value and potential and talent, then that would mean that, I don't know, I guess just being worthless is being easier. If I show that I am worth something, then maybe people are going to start actually seeing value in me. And by seeing value in me, what that's going to do is that's going to just make me think that the intermediate years and the elementary years were just bad years. They weren't my whole life. It's hard to explain. But when you live your whole life as a child with no friends, a family that you don't want to hurt so you keep quiet, really like just trying to make friends, but not really knowing how because you can't communicate with people, trying to share your emotions and your empathy, but you don't really know how to, you just can't help but feel like you're invisible and that you're just an outsider and you're somebody that was a mistake, a glitch in the system, a little coding error, a little thing in the brain where, oh, you were fine until this happened, and now honestly you should have just, I don't know, left somehow, found a way to leave and just get gone, go. You should have left already. You shouldn't even be here right now. And so the 18 under 18, it was a big moment for me, but I still didn't feel good. I still didn't feel like after everything I've done, after all the talks I've given about autism, after all the positive things I've said, that deep down inside, there's still a part of me that just doesn't feel right. And I tried to figure out what that was for the longest time. And I think what it was overall was just that, yes, I was refusing to give up on myself, but I was also refusing to give up the negative self-talk that I gave to myself. Paradoxically, there was a side of me that really wanted to succeed, that saw a lot of value in myself, that saw myself as somebody that's capable of making friends. But on the other hand, there was a side of me that just said, no, not so fast. Stop getting so happy. That's not how we've done things for a decade. Stop doing that. It's weird. It's just awkward. Ugh. So eventually, though, I still thought, okay, I'm going to take another chance. I'm going to talk to the head of junior achievement in Western PA, and I'm going to talk about an internship. I want to intern, and I'm just going to do it. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to try. And so what I did was I met with her at the office of junior achievement Western PA, and I said, I really want to intern here. I've been thinking about it a lot. I know we've been talking about opportunities of junior achievement and 18 under 18 individuals that were nominated, and I really want this chance to be somebody that can learn something new, something that I'm not afraid to learn, and something that I may not even know much about. Marketing, it could be public speaking. I want to get better at that. It could be educating the youth, because it was an organization that educated youth on entrepreneurship, work and career readiness, and financial planning. I want to educate them. I want to talk to them. And so eventually she said yes, and throughout the next year after high school, I was an official intern at Junior Achievement, and I learned a lot of things there. But my favorite moment, and this is a moment where things really allowed me to see the world in a different way than up here, was when I was running not the 18 under 18, I was running the Junior Achievement BizTown simulation. So at the back of Junior Achievement in Western PA's office, there's a large area with a little fake target. It's about like this big, as big as the monitor. And kids can walk in and they can sell certain products for like BizTown bucks. But they only get those bucks by actually working at places like Giant Eagle or the little FedEx we have. Essentially, it's like a tiny little town. You know how like at malls, for example, there are all these different stores. You can work in a mall, get some money. Now imagine going to another store in a mall to buy stuff, and then you go back to your job, make some more money to buy more stuff. It's really that simple. But what they did throughout the year was they prepared the kids. They taught them how to write checks. They taught them how to work as a team. They taught them, okay, you're going to be the CFO. You're going to be the marketer. You're going to be the delivery man. And it was fun. I really loved it because I got to learn a lot about finance and teach these kids many different things. But the main turning point was when I was working as a volunteer for Comcast. And it was our little Comcast. I wasn't actually at Comcast. I wish I was. But what happened was there was this little kid, and he was just kind of sitting, not really doing much. And I'm like, hi, I'm Zach. How are you? Like, what's your name? And he said his name. And I didn't really know why at the time, but he's just like, he says something really sad about his family situation. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm sorry to hear that. And this kid wouldn't talk. This kid wouldn't talk at all throughout the entire event. And so I'm thinking, kind of like what Dr. Heron was thinking, can this kid even talk? Like, he's kind of mute. Now, we got along, I cracked some jokes, and I know this is gonna sound a little silly maybe, but hear me out. It meant a lot to the kid, and it meant a lot to me. But this kid starts talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror game created by industry creator Scott Coffin, and he's basically this guy that made this little scary game. It was kind of kid-friendly. It wasn't like too intense for a horror game. Kids took a liking to it. I took a liking to it. I liked the scary animatronics. And unfortunately, as a kid, that was my interest, and these guys didn't know much. They were like, well, that's just weird that you really like scary video games. So again, I felt a little isolated. Everyone in my school even, they didn't want to talk about it. And whenever I tried to talk about it, I'd be called kind of weird, like, why do you like a game about haunted robots? What? And so this kid starts talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie to his friend. And he mentions a YouTuber that makes content related to Five Nights at Freddy's. And I knew what he was talking about. So I go, he's still around? It's been like 7 years. And he's like, yeah. And then his eyes just light up, like as if he just saw like his mother for the first time or something. He's like, wait, you know about it? And I'm like, yes, I love Five Nights at Freddy's. I love that stuff. And he just starts going off. And I didn't ask him anything. He just out loud goes in front of everybody. Finally, someone I can talk to. And then he starts sharing like, hey, I can't talk to anyone about this. Everybody thinks I'm weird. Nobody really gets my interests. I have like these really unique interests and nobody wants to talk about them. And I think at the time, of course I like talking about it in general, but I spent a lot of time, anytime I could outside of running the simulation, running Comcast specifically, just trying to show this kid that, look, there are people, even if they're older, that know what you care about, that are interested in the same things you're interested in, even if they're a little wacky, even if they're a little out there. And this kid, it's hard to describe on stage. He'd have to be here, but it really did feel, you could just tell I was making his day. You could just tell that this kid never had anyone to talk to, not even in his family, not even in his broken family. He seemed like he's like, I don't have any friends. I don't have anybody really. And I'm just saying, look, I grew up very much the same. I love Five Nights at Freddy's. And everyone talked about it for a week and then they forgot. And, you know, dude, like there are people out there that do like this stuff. And even if they're not people that like it, there are people that do want to hear from you. There are people that love your energy. There are people that love your interests in gaming and in scary movies. And he was just going off because he wanted to hear an adult's opinion of, well, what do you think about the movie? He's like, okay, here are the 3 things I want in a movie. And I know the movie. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't think we're going to get this scene because that's in the 5th game. And he's like, no, but we got to get the scene from the 4th game. That scene's crucial. It sets the tone for every single thing that happens after. And I'm like, oh yeah, we need that scene. We need that scene. But this happened a lot with so many other kids. I learned with a lot of kids there. And this is something that I've learned really recently as well. A lot of kids in Gen Alpha, Gen Z, I know Gen Alpha is called the iPad generation. And I learned a lot about how to teach kids because I was there every single day. It was an entire simulation with over 100 kids that I had to present to, that I had to talk to, that I had to educate, that I had to get to know. Every single day, a new group. And the main thing I learned with these kids was to not tell them to do something if they think they can do it. So let's say a kid was writing a check. Instead of saying, here's what you do, I said, okay, well, what do you do? And they may not have an answer. So then I'm going to say, okay, well, think about it a little bit. They think, and I think kids are a lot smarter than we sometimes give them credit for. They're really creative, they're really unique, and they do study really hard when they have a motivation. And the kid would piece it together. And sometimes I would have to get involved. But most of the time, and this, like a lot of the kids would always come to me with problems, I'd say, well, figure it out yourself. Like, this is life, figure it out yourself. They'd figure it out. And I'd say, like, look, you're smart. See, you did that. You didn't need me. You did that. You wrote the check. You sold the product. You cashed out everybody's paychecks. You delivered the paychecks if you worked at the bank. And these kids were able to grow a lot from that because they had somebody that just let them learn. There was nobody that was holding their hand. And sometimes you have to hold their hand a little bit, but you got to remember, you got to let go sometimes. That's how they're going to learn. And one thing about these kids was that they were so creative too. One time there were 2 kids doing like a lightsaber battle with toilet paper rolls that they taped up. They were fighting over Skittles. which sounds silly, but guess what? They sold all their product really fast because everybody wanted to see the show and they wanted free entertainment and popcorn. And it worked. I mean, they had to pay for the popcorn, but they didn't care. It was a free show. It was a free show. And that is really a moment that I realized, that's a moment where I realized, okay, the kids here really like me. The kids here trust me. They rely on me sometimes. And my response is learn on your own. Take that opportunity. Take that creative marketing risk. Try to learn something new while you're here. And this is when I started to look back and thought, that's kind of what I was doing ever since Shout, really, was that even though I was afraid, even though I didn't really feel like I deserved it, even though I felt like there was nothing really to do for myself that would be beneficial because I would just fail in the end, I still took chances. And when I got hit with a struggle like constant injuries of running, I would just work more to stay in shape so I could run more. And when it came to junior achievement, okay, so telling the kids to do every single little thing makes them kind of hate you. So let's do the exact opposite of what they want still and say you do it all yourself. But then they find confidence in themselves and they think, okay, I can do this. Let me try this. Let me try that. And next thing you know, these kids are little pieces of inspiration for me as well, because they also served as a mirror of, okay, here are these kids not afraid to take a chance. And that's kind of what I did. I wasn't afraid to take a chance. And because I wasn't afraid, these kids, just like me, were able to grow. And there are so many times in my life where I still don't really know much about what I'm doing, but I still want to try. And this leads us to the last little part that I'm going to mention. And it is hard with 30 minutes, but I'm going to try to include as much as I can. In South Fayette, after I broke my foot my freshman year, I joined a Youth for Christ organization. And it involved the South Fayette community, this little branch. And it was an organization that focused on bringing in youth that, one, maybe wanted to talk about God, they maybe wanted to learn more about him, and then others that are maybe more just troubled than anything else. And so I joined the organization, didn't really do much until it was my senior year where I started to get a little bit more involved. But then one of the kids from another chapter, who he's watching this right now, or he will watch this, Nathan Renz, absolutely incredible individual, absolutely incredible. What he did eventually was that we took a liking to each other. And he thought, hey, how about you come over to my place and let's talk about some ideas with Youth for Christ, with the Bible. And he said, I think you're somebody that is responsible, is intelligent, and can talk about a lot of deep things. I'm like, okay. So I went over to his place. We talked a lot. And today he's one of my best friends. And we also involved ourselves in his young adults group that he had, where he would bring in people that graduated and weren't a part of YFC anymore because they aren't students, but they still want to be involved in a community. And so I talk with him a lot even today about, well, how can we build this up? How can we work with these kids, not just in YFC, but in young adults? How can we work with the Bible? How can we work with the entire Youth for Christ organization and the many individuals involved? And through doing that, I finally found something that I really wanted, and that was a group of friends. Because these people some were lost, some were confused, some were wanting to help others, but we all were genuine people just trying to live our lives, just trying to figure things out one day at a time. And I didn't even intend for it, but I find them to be my friends today. I find Nate to be one of my closest friends today. I think I finally found people that I can hang out with and that I can share interests with, and that who want to listen to me and who I want to listen to, and are not afraid to have conversations about me on the spectrum, or we're not afraid to even just have conversations about them going through some things of, okay, what's happening with you? And just yesterday, I remember there was a kid, and he's on the spectrum as well. And this is public. He's on the spectrum as well. And he has a lot of similar interests as me. He likes scary movies. He likes rock and roll music. But he shared with me yesterday, he said, hey, look, man, I'm feeling really depressed recently. I thought that because of COVID, I was going to turn my life around, but I'm still stuck in the same place. And I didn't say anything. I would just listen because nobody seemed to do that when I was a kid. So I did it for him. And he listened to me, or I listened to him, and he just kept sharing things. I'd ask questions like, oh, can you elaborate further? And he elaborated. And by the end of the night, I told Nathan, I said, look, man, this kid really wants to get together with us. I took him out for breakfast one time, and I want to take him out again. He really wants to get together with us. Can we make this happen? Can we call the boys together? Can we get the boys assembled to finally, because he has no friends. Nobody likes his interests. Again, very relatable story. There are so many people like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let another person have the negative thoughts that I had when I was a kid. And even if they do, I want them to know something that I didn't know when I was young. And that's that there are people that love me, and that there are people that are willing to talk with me if I just put myself out there. And there are people that are not afraid to share their genuineness with you and even with your family. Like, I've gotten to know a lot of great people, and my parents know them as well. One of my best friend is someone that I didn't even know. He was in my neighborhood. I didn't really know him until later in life. Now he's my ride or die. And we've been through a lot of stuff together. That's not going to be a talk today, but I can tell story after story of, that was a close call. We need to try this. Okay, buddy, here's the plan. This guy is insane, and I think he also could have used a little bit of a tilted head like mine. And I think that's also something that works really well with Nate and I, because Nate is he's a dreamer, he's a visionary. And I'm more of the guy that's like, well, I read these books here, because I'm big on accounting, finance, numbers. We work so well together because of that. He believes in the dream, so do I, and he's the type of guy that'll get on the stage and just sell it to a massive audience of millions of people. And I'm the guy that wants to really help him work out the logistics. And through mirroring our strengths and through really trying to work together through that, we're able to create something that was excellent. Young Adults is now thriving. That's for YFC, for the people that graduated. YFC even, Nate has told me, my Youth for Christ group that I'm running right now is doing so good. The kids are so engaged. South Fayette is so engaged. They are regarded as the most friendliest group in YFC. Everybody loves them, regardless of the chapter. They think we're so close. And the reason why we're so close is because we really want to work with each other. We really want to support each other. We want to just be friends. We don't want to be acquaintances. We don't want to be business partners. We want to be your friend. We want to be somebody that understands, okay, you may have some troubles. You may have some negative self-talk. It may be illogical what you think, but we understand that to you it may seem perfectly logical because we're not in your head. And we just want to listen. Same with what I did with the kids. I listened. And that's the thing I started to realize, that a lot of kids on the spectrum especially, but a lot of youth today even, they just need to be listened to. They need to be listened to. They need to be shown first that people can understand them. And even if they can't understand entirely, they're willing to try to talk about it with them. My best relationships have come through me being silent and then eventually saying, oh, so this. And they're like, that's right. Okay, well, here's what I think. If you don't listen to them first, they are not going to budge. And you could call it a psychological problem, but it just really is the case. But when you do that, these kids with junior achievement, they're going to become the nicest kids in the world. They're going to become the most hardworking kids in the world because somebody believes in them. And I tried to be that for them. I wanted to be somebody that I wish I had, somebody that believed in them. Even in young adults, yes, they're like taller than me, most of them. I'm pretty tiny, honestly, compared to a lot of these kids. But I'm someone that can listen. I'm someone that lets them know that they're valued, that I want to hear from them. And I think that at the end of the day, how has my story gone so far? Well, the main thing I've learned from my story is just that, yes, there are going to be many different types of problems up in here. Like, even today, I still think to myself, okay, like, do I still deserve this? And it's every Wednesday night that I go out to Permanis with my friends, and asked ChatGPT to write rap music for fun. And I'm called the kibasi boy because I only order kibasi with bread because fries and cheese are overrated. I'm literally known there. Like yesterday, a new waitress, she goes, "Oh, so you're the kibasi boy." And I'm like, yeah. I wasn't there one time. I was late. And even the chef, he's like, "Where's the kibasi boy?" So my best friend, Nate, he goes back in there. One of my best friends, he's like, "Guys, kibasi boy is here." He yells in the kitchen and everyone's happy. And there's that. Just going out with them, going to junior achievement and interacting with kids and just hearing them out, letting them be kids, letting them be adventurous, letting them be willing to take risks, letting them be willing, more than anything, to learn something. And then with Shout, being more than willing to grow this organization and see how much it's grown. Keep reading the articles because of how much it's grown. And it's just been an excellent experience. And what I'm going to keep doing is what I've been doing, and that's keep working and not being afraid to take chances. Because I think with the chance also comes people that thankfully listen to me now. You all take the time to listen to me now shows that there's value here. And that shows love. And I think that, it's not the, "Oh, I love you," but in a way, like, it's still love to me. It's still reciprocation that you care about me. And it's reciprocation that you care about so many others on the spectrum, so many others that don't really feel motivated. It means a lot to Nate, I'm sure. And I think that's the most important thing we need to do is just show people that they're loved and we want to hear them. And most importantly, they should not be afraid to try something new. So our good friend Audie, he's going to go through the audience. If you have any questions, please ask me. Oh, you're going to interview me. You're the man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
So, how does it feel to be back here after, 6 years almost?
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it definitely feels a little surreal. I know with the TED Talk, it was much different because I didn't really know much of what was going on. I, of course, had my script, but the future was still very uncertain for me. And now that I'm here with a lot more realization, a lot more experience, I have a much better direction overall. But it feels good.
Also, before I forget, Dr. Herring told me that from Shout, we love you so much. We miss you. So thank you so much for coming back and really sharing your story with the SAFE community. My first question that I have, obviously, you are a former co-chair of Shout. From your time here at Shout, what was one of your favorite events? And what was really the takeaway that you got from that event? And why did it really inspire you?
Okay. So my favorite event is definitely the Religions of the World event. I really loved it because there were so many things I did not know about many different types of religions before we did the event. And just seeing so many different people with so many different thoughts and ways of performing with their faith, it was just such an eye-opener for one. And then it was also just such a way for me to learn about things I did not know. It taught me, okay, there are a lot of things I do not know about even. I remember one of them was Zoroastrianism, and I did not know anything about that, but it's fascinating. And I was so engaged and interested. And I think a lot of people, you could see through the comments, most importantly, they learned so much from that. And they were just really happy that they learned something new that day. And they felt more connected with people they may have thought that they weren't too connected with before, that they couldn't connect with.
I love that event so much. Yeah, I was actually just about to say that. So Tuesday, April 9th, it's next week, we have our Uncommon Conference. And one of the events that we're having is the Religions of the World event. And we've invited some of our speakers from our previous events and new speakers. So if you guys are interested, feel free to stop by. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. My second question to you, obviously you have been a Shout co-chair throughout your time here at Lafayette. To our youth, to our elementary schoolers and intermediate schoolers, what would you like to say to them? And really the future leaders, what would you like to say to them for those who have went through similar struggles? Like, what would you like to say to them?
So you are going to face so much uncertainty. you are going to be so confused at so many moments in your life. You may even question if what you're even doing is right or wrong at all for you. The one thing I can recommend is that there's nobody that could give better advice to you than yourself. And so I'm looking at the cameras, by the way, sorry. Nothing personal. But what that means is there are going to be people that love you. There are going to be people that support you. But read something, learn something, try to find people to look up to, do anything you can so that you yourself are also capable of making decisions based on your own education. That's the point of self-education especially. That's one of the most important things. You're such a unique individual that you need to continue working to find the strength in yourself and then feeding off others along with that. I wish I could give more specific advice, but again, like I said, it's specific to you, and I don't know you front and back. No one can know you but you entirely.
Now that deserves a money clap, as Dr. Herring is what he's doing. So the money clap, for those of you who don't know, is how wealthy people clap. And it's basically here at Shout, if someone gives someone like great advice, something that is so profound, we give the rich people clap. So let's give a money clap to Zach. And my final question, and you kind of answered it previously, but if you were to go back 10 years ago and be in your shoes, what would you tell yourself? And what are some of the lessons you would tell yourself 10 years ago?
That you don't have to worry about having it all out in front of you, everything. You don't have to worry about having a plan that is bulletproof, that cannot fail. If anything, the times that you did have that were the times where you struggled the most, the times where you were too afraid or too set in your ways. The trail's just going to turn left and right and you can't control it, and you really just need to embrace that. You can't be afraid. And I would also let him know that, it doesn't get better, you just get stronger, you just get more capable of handling it. And if anything, it gets harder sometimes, and you think it's the hardest point in your life. The difference now is that you're not going to beat yourself up. You're not your own worst enemy. You're going to be somebody that is more than willing to try to pick yourself up, and you do have people, something you didn't even want to acknowledge before because it was just so surreal.
Let's give him one big round of applause. Zach, thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you as well.
It was an honor. And Zach, it feels amazing for you to be back, truly.
Agreed.
I haven't seen you in forever.
Oh,
so.
you have grown a lot.
And you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So much, everyone. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Wait, don't leave just yet. I need to get you a present.
So I don't know if anyone has any questions before we let this young man go. He's done a lot of talking.
Thanks.
You
think it was good?
Now we can't get him started.
Thank you.
But I am so
appreciate
proud. But
it.
does anyone have any questions? Question.
What made you start talking?
You mean like with the TEDx talk or here?
Whenever you said you never talked, and all of a sudden you talked. What made you decide to do that?
I just kind of decided. It was a very emotional decision of, okay, I just want something more. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to actually try to grow. And the most important hurdle that needs to be jumped over, leaped over, climbed over, whatever the heck, I got to get over it, is just to talk more. And that's really it. I think eventually a lot of people just get to that moment where it's like they get so emotional over something, they just do it. And I think that was my moment where it was like, okay, I had enough, I'm talking. I didn't know what to say. I remember I even flunked it. I was put on the spot and I completely bombed it. And I said, actually, ask our co-chairs. But I got better. Mm-hmm.
Takes courage.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. So,
You're my cousin. You're not allowed.
well, yeah, so you're going to be you're taking classes and going to college, and you're going to be going away to college coming in the fall. Do you plan on maybe continuing what you're doing at the school you're at, and maybe getting into groups or starting a group like you had and get more kids involved, and where you're going to go to?
Definitely. So Messiah is where I'm going in the fall. Messiah is in Hershey, PA. I'm going there for finance. And they have a lot of great opportunities already that I want to get involved with, both when it comes to the business, like just the business sector, And then I also really want to be involved in any youth group that's there. And they have many different charitable opportunities I could be a part of. Maybe I start something, maybe I work my way up in it. But YFC, again, that's something that I think Messiah would really benefit from if they don't have it already. But I am focused on continuing what's worked so far in my life and trying to bring it there as well. Does anyone else have any questions? So I'm unfortunately not. It's just that I've gotten so busy I haven't had the time to. So instead I'm just lifting weights, working on cardio, just trying to stay in shape overall. I don't want to drop the fitness aspect. Yes?
So, you know about DEI, so companies hire people from diverse
Yep.
people. So recently a push has been against the DEI. So what are your thoughts about it? Like why people are pushing back about the DEI, and what are your thoughts?
So I think the push, it really depends on the individual and why the push is happening. I would say the most important part that people need to ask themselves is the push purely based on whether or not you want the person to be capable of doing the job? And this is where I think there's a bit of a gray area, because I think there are many different people from many different backgrounds that are capable of doing the same job. This is my opinion. Whoever does it best should get the job. But there are things like statistics do show, this was a statistic back in 2019, something similar, where if black students were to have a black professor in high school, they were much more likely to go to college. So having that representation, especially positive representation in the workforce and school, does tremendous effects to youth. And not just youth, but adults in general. That's what my mother did with autism, for example. She showed, look, there are people that can do this. And so I think that the push against it, again, is kind of a gray area of, if you want to say, well, it only depends on the person that can do the job, like who can do it best. That is a solid argument. Another solid argument, though, is, but we also want to make sure that we have examples, role models for minority students to follow. And in whichever way possible, we need that. At the very least, we need that, because again, they are people too, and they really need to be shown you can do just as well, even if it may feel like you're not capable. I hope that answers your question. It's a gray area, unfortunately. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think you just closed the show with that one.
Good job.
Okay.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I'm still not entirely confident with speaking. I still get it in my head sometimes. So I hope it went well. I'm going to go to these guys immediately. Like, did it go well? So I hope it did. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot.
Proud of you. Thank you. So anyway, Zach Betz. He said something though, and it reminds me of something that my mentor used to say to me all the time. The most powerful words in the English language end in side. Homicide, suicide, but the most powerful word is decide. And you made a decision. You decided that you were going to make a change in your life. And you did it. And look at where you are now. And I'm just so honored to be a person who saw you from where that thing germinated, it just started sprouting up, the seeds that your parents planted, to the tree that you become. And I can't wait till you become an entire forest. So thank you. Thank you so much. Zach Betz.